1,000 people, or 5,000, or maybe even 10 to 20,000 people were executed in China during the last year. We will never know the exact number, as China considers this information as a state secret. However, many organizations and experts around the world believe that out of all countries that are still actively using the death penalty, China sentences to death the most people by far. One estimate says that China executes more people than all other countries combined. In a regime like this, justice is more a nice concept than a reality, and you need to be a little more thoughtful about what you do or what you say. These are 45 offenses for which you can be legally executed in China. Let's begin with probably the most common capital offense, which is murder. I think it's not a surprise that this crime will mostly end with execution. According to data directly from China, around 6,500 murders were admitted in 2021. But it's hard to believe any data given by the Chinese government. China says that this number is at a record low, and that there has been an 80% decrease in homicides in the last 20 years, which could sound like a great advertisement for the Chinese camera systems. However, even if you haven't killed anybody, you can be executed for intentional assault. In other words, if you would hurt somebody in a really ugly way. Now, one of the less common offenses on the list is jailbreaking. I haven't found any such case in recent history. One reason is that escaping from prison in China is near impossible, especially with today's technologies. One of the documented prison breaks is the story of Zhu Xianjian. Please forgive me my pronunciation of Asian names. In 2013, this young man illegally escaped from North Korea to China, where he afterwards committed several robberies, which resulted in his imprisonment for 11 years. In 2021, as his sentence was going to the end, he successfully escaped from the prison, but not for long. After 40 days, he was recaptured and sent back to prison. Many people speculated that he did it intentionally, because after serving the first sentence, he would be deported back to North Korea and immediately executed there for escaping from the country. One of the most problematic groups of crimes are those endangering national security. Now, these are dangerous for every citizen for one specific reason. They are somewhat flexible and they can be used to accuse inconvenient people. Among those are treason, separatism, and armed rebellion or rioting. These laws are most often applied in the Xinjiang region, that is the far west region where live the distinct Islamic ethnic group of Uyghurs. There are numerous stories of execution of Uyghurs, accused mostly of separatism to various Islamic groups or ethnic rioting. China is well known for its violent suppression of Uyghur culture and race, and for those purposes, these capital punishments work perfectly. And these are not the only ways how you can endanger the national security. There are 4 more reasons why you could be sentenced to death. Those are collaborating with the enemy, spying or espionage, selling state secrets, or providing material support to the enemy. Once again, I guess that the definition of the enemy is rather flexible. Espionage in particular is an unforgivable offense in China. I think that we will never be able to know about all of the cases that are happening there, but sometimes some of them go public. Just a few weeks ago, on February 5th, 2024, China gave Yang Jun, a Chinese-born Australian citizen, a suspended death sentence for espionage. He was first arrested in 2019 when he flew into China to renew visas for his family. The reason was that in the past he wrote spy novels and pro-democracy blog posts. Now he has been sentenced to suspend death, which means that the sentence may be commuted to life imprisonment if no serious crimes are committed for 2 years. Although all of these rules might seem frightening, Chinese people are still in a better situation than they have ever been. Because in the last 30 years, China has removed dozens of capital offenses. Before 1997, you could have been sentenced to death for killing giant pandas, organizing prostitution, or spreading rumors during wartime. Nevertheless, let's talk about the 35 offenses you still need to be aware of in order to stay alive. Besides endangering national security, there are offenses endangering public security, and these should be punished. Some of these are arson, flooding, manslaughter, or bombing. In 2018, a Chinese nanny was executed after starting a fire in the living room of a family she was working for. She hoped that saving the family from the blaze would persuade them to lend her more money. Unfortunately, she wasn't able to save them, and the family died in the fire, while the nanny escaped. However, she was executed immediately afterward. Further to this category, we add really specific offenses, like spreading hazardous substances, such as radioactive, toxic, or pathogenic, seriously endangering public safety, which is again one of the more vague ones, sabotaging electricity, sabotaging gas, fuel, petroleum, or other flammables or explosive, or spreading poisons. Indeed, it seems that poisons are a common weapon against competition in China. In 2002, a noodle shop owner in southern China was arrested on charges that he poisoned customers at a rival business by putting rat poison in soup sold there, sickening 57 people. Luckily, no one died, so he wasn't executed. However, the opposite was true for a snack shop owner who confessed to killing dozens of people by poisoning food at a rival store. The poisonings killed at least 38 people and sickened up to 300 others. The culprit was executed immediately. In fact, in most of the cases, the execution takes place within a few weeks after the verdict. The law states that death sentences shall be executed by means of shooting or injection. The public is generally not allowed to view the execution, and the execution ground is heavily guarded by the police. Since China has to do a lot of executions, it has developed a new method unique to this country. It's called an execution van. In practice, the prisoner is strapped to a stretcher and executed inside the van. The vans require only 4 people to assist the injection and are mobile. This is mad. It's like a race to find the most efficient and convenient way for executions. Now, back to the offenses endangering public security, because that still wasn't all from that category. The last 5 reasons for execution are hijacking aircraft, illegal possession, transport or selling of explosive or firearms, illegally manufacturing, selling, transporting or storing hazardous materials, theft of explosive or other dangerous materials, and theft of firearms, ammunition or other dangerous material. Wow, some of these are really specific. As we know, in China you are never safe, no matter how high you are. Another 2 reasons for execution are the production or sale of hazardous food products and the production or sale of counterfeit medicine, which turned out to be fatal for Chang Xiangyu, former director of the State Food and Drug Administration. His story exposed the overall corruption in the country. Chang had taken bribes, a lot of bribes, from 8 pharmaceutical companies in exchange for personally approving unproven and unsafe medicines. These approvals caused the deaths of over 800 people in Panama from cough syrup. During his 8-year period as the director, Chang personally ordered approval of more than 150,000 new medicines, which is 134 times more than the US did in the same period. When he was finally found guilty in 2007, he was declared a great danger to the country and its reputation and executed. We have already talked about murder and assaults, which makes the group of worst offenses, together with rape, kidnapping, and human trafficking. These are truly the worst crimes and unfortunately still common in China. One estimate says that there are more than 40,000 cases of rape every year. Meanwhile, kidnapping and human trafficking are still a big part of the Chinese black market. In 2013, it was estimated that around 70,000 children were kidnapped in China every year. It is usually for ransom, but there have been reports that some children have been sold into adoption overseas. One of the least cruel crimes on the list is robbery. By committing theft, you will unlikely end up in an execution van. Of course, if you are not stealing in the home of the National People's Congress in Beijing. Indeed, who was accused of stealing is the government itself. In 1984, the Chinese government approved a regulation to allow the removal of organs from executed criminals, provided they give prior consent or if no one claims the body. However, only a small percentage of criminals were willing to provide consent. And still, China's organ market exploded and started growing. One estimate says that in 2010, 90% of organ transplants from deceased donors were sourced from prisoners. In this matter, China has been accused of human rights violation. But you should watch out not to violate the following laws on the list. Among those are raiding a prison, smuggling, dealing, transporting or manufacturing drugs, sabotaging weapons, military installations or military communications, and providing substandard weapons or military installations. Oof. These laws are really covering every possible situation. Further, we also add embezzlement. Many types of financial crimes could fall under this offense, usually involving theft of money from a business or employer, or taking advantage of a position to steal funds or assets, most commonly over a period of time. We cannot forget the fact that mistakes happen, and sometimes they are irreversible, especially if you carry out the execution right after the verdict is given. The story of Tang Xinshang is the perfect example of that. The Chinese butcher was convicted and executed in 1989 for the murder of Xi Xiaorou, a waitress who had disappeared. But the twist came when she reappeared in Shandong in 1993, 4 years later after the execution, and said that she had never even met the butcher. Following this, he was posthumously acquitted in 2006. And once again, there could be hundreds of stories like this, which have probably been swept under the carpet. This leads us to the last category of capital offenses, which are breaches of duty by soldiers. Well, China has more than 2 million active soldiers, which is the most in the world. It is in fact more than the population of 50 different countries in the world. Still, the rules of the Chinese army are one of the most strict in the world. The following 9 offenses can get you executed. Among those is insubordination, which is the act of willfully disobeying a lawful order of one's superior. Further, there is concealment or false reporting of military intelligence, refusing to pass or falsely passing orders. Surrender, defection with aircraft or ships, selling military secrets, theft of military weaponry or supplies, illegally selling or transferring military weaponry or supplies, killing innocent inhabitants of war zones or plundering their property. And the last one is cowardice. And these make a total of 45 capital offenses in China. It is fair to say that many of these haven't resulted in the execution for a long time, at least not officially. However, it doesn't change anything about the fact that committing any of these crimes could end up very badly. If you would like to know more about how our world works, I will explain it to you in this video. Please don't forget to subscribe and like this video. Thank you and see you there.